Hi there, welcome to the Building Your Tiny House Dream video tutorial series. I'm Chris, I run a company called Tiny Industrial, and along with the book of the same title, I'll be showing you how to build this exact house. So follow along, I'll be releasing a new video every Wednesday, and hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Alright, although we'd already previously laid out the roof on top of the structure, now we're going to actually be attaching it. Here we go. Okay, so this is looking good. Nothing's been attached yet. We've got all three aluminum panels up there. The very next, they're straight and they're overlapped properly, and they line up to a nice clean edge on the side, and it comes over the front about this far, which is what I wanted. It terminates in the back here with these cutoffs, so great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 3 screws in here. I'm going to put 1 screw at the end of this one, and I'm going to put 1 screw through both panels again into that middle roofing beam, through the 2 panels, the first 2 panels. And then I'm going to put a 3rd screw into where the 2nd panel gets overlapped by the 1st panel, I guess. So if this is 3rd panel, middle is 2nd panel, 1st panel is the one up front. 1, 2, 3 screws. Why do I do that? Because I want to be able to recreate the positioning of these, and the way to do that is to put a screw through there, because there'll be a hole invariably through the aluminum, and that hole will line up with a hole in the roofing beam. And once we have everything lined up, we can recreate the positioning that we have currently. This is a couple things we're going to need to do. Like I said before, we're going to snap some chalk lines on here, and we're going to figure out where we're going to want to put the screws. Let me just show you those. So the screws that we're going to use are these. This is a roofing screw, shockingly. And the way that it works is it's like a regular screw. It's got a hexagonal head. But the key thing here is this little rubber gasket. Now I don't know if the camera's going to focus in on that. I'll provide a picture if it doesn't. But it's got this little washer, integrated washer with a rubber, like sort of grommet behind it. And what happens is when you screw this in, it goes in, and then the grommet hits, you get to the end of the screw, and the grommet hits the metal and kind of compresses. And that compression is what creates moisture barrier. So it pushes this thing together. Now you don't want to over tighten these, because that rubber ring will develop cracks and water will get in that way. You also don't want to make it too loose, because water will just creep underneath it. So there's a little bit of a finesse with these, but if you put these in right, these will never go bad on you. Well, eventually everything goes bad, but they'll last for a long time. Yeah, that's what they look like. Anyway, so 3 of these to begin with. We have to pre-drill this because these are not self-tapping. So we have to pre-drill those 3 holes. Then we're going to sink 3 of these screws in there, and then we're on to the next steps. The first one is in. As we do the other 2, we want to make sure everything's still in alignment, nothing's shifted, and so on. So now I'm going to go around to the other side. You may have seen this already, but I have some scaffolding over there. There's other ways to do this. The scaffolding is the easiest thing for me, especially here in the workshop. I borrow that scaffolding off of somebody. It's not terribly expensive to buy. I would suggest that you look around and try to find some of that. You can also kind of create scaffolding if you have 2 ladders. I'm sure you could find a 2nd ladder to borrow. You can, you can bridge ladders with some 2x12s or similar and create scaffolding that way. But yeah, this is one of the harder aspects of the build, because you do have to get up there, and You know, although this isn't a huge structure, it is rather high up there, and you need to be able to work up there. So, so the scaffolding is what I use. The reason I put that dot there is that's where the chalk line ends, meaning that when we put the chalk line on there, this piece was slid up right to that point. We'll do the same thing on the other side with that particular line. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna lift this piece up and over this bead of silicone, drop it down, and then we're gonna continue the bead of silicone by lifting up on the piece and running it for the length, the remaining length here. We're actually gonna do that right now for the part that I just did over on the left here, because it's gonna be harder to lift once this piece is on top of this piece. So this whole thing is a little bit fraught and perilous, made doubly intensively hard by working closely under the ceiling, which is hot, and working solo does not make this job any easier either. So all those things kind of are compounded here. But just to check, there was that hole that we drilled right there. That is still perfectly lined up with where it needs to be. And so that's a good sign. We're gonna do the Sharpie mark on the other side. Slide the plate in place. Here we go. Over here, I've just got the ladder. So, balancing on that. What was I gonna do? Oh, I already have the silicone over here. Don't so much need that, but I do need that mark right where the dust ends or starts, depending on how you look at it. So now, that piece goes over there, but first, we're gonna put some more silicone on that edge. Okay, everything lines up. You got these dots lining up. Everything looks good. We fasten it. Like that. This is hard work. Now we're in a pretty good position. We can put the remaining silicone in there. Then we're going to drill roughly equally spaced holes into the 2x4s through the metal. And then we're just going to send a bunch of screws through there. And then that is it. Then the roof is on, so that's pretty exciting. Lift this up and get to where the silicone is. Just continue that bead all the way down. There we go. That's a good seal in there. Weatherproof, freeze-proof, crack-proof, shrink-proof, waterproof, permanently waterproof, 30-minute rain ready. It's not going to rain in here unless I start sweating on it. Mold-free protection, wet or dry surfaces. This is the good stuff. All right, let me go do that on the other side. Then we'll start with the drilling of all the various holes that we need. All right, so we've already got a bunch of screws in here. Now, this part still needs to be drilled and screws need to be put in. So that's what I'll do. I'm spacing these out. I'm not measuring it, I'm eyeballing it. They're about 11 inches apart. And I'm drilling through the metal until I hit the wood. And then I stop and drill the next hole, and so on. I can only do one side at a time. Okay, there we go. So now that we got those holes drilled, we can put these screws in there.
with the little rubber gasket. You want to clear the area of kind of like the metal shavings, because they can get under the rubber grommet and deteriorate it or lead to some leakage. And we don't want to over tighten them. If you're just starting out, I actually recommend not using the impact, because impact is a lot harder to sort of regulate in terms of the pressure that you're putting on the rubber grommet. I got a pretty good feel for it, so, and it's faster. Everything's lying nice and flat and flush, because if it isn't, and you're creating sort of like a, how do I explain this? But if you have sort of a bubble in here or a buckle, and when you tighten these down, sometimes you can make that more pronounced by the tightening of the metal. So be aware of that. Try to have everything be laying nice and flat. And I glued, the underside of these. So everything should be attaching to roofing beams real nice. So that's 3 rows. How many did I put in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 per row. So we got 39 screws in on this side, and we got another 26 on the other side. So about 60, 70 screws on the upper portion. And then there's still the edge of the roof, which is still dangling in the air. We're going to attach that a little bit differently. But getting this all put together is good. The silicone seals are in here so that water can't trap back into those channels. The overlap is pretty sufficient. Yeah, and that's about it. We're gonna go to the other side, so I got to move the scaffolding over there, which is no small task, because the wheels are locked up on this particular piece. We'll do the other side, but then the roof is done, which is good. All right, so we got the scaffolding on the other side. We're gonna do the holes up to about over here, so I can't reach them anymore. Then I'm gonna move the scaffolding up a little bit more. When we'll put the screws in here, you'll get a good view of me doing that. I try not to slam my head into this beam up here too much, too often. Here we go. The top one's already done, so that's helpful.
Okay, so there you go. The roof is in. Again, make sure that the seams are all lined up and that the screws are in at the proper depth. And that's all there is to it.